Chiefs Kingdom. The Kansas City Chiefs just got fantastic news. They really just got a gift from the NFL with some major NFL news that just broke today. We're going to break it down on the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports. My name is Jackson Durham. Thank you so much for tuning in today, choosing to spend your time with us. We always appreciate it. Let me give you a little rundown of what's coming up on today's show before we get into anything. Like I said, we've got the NFL's major announcement. That's going to be the number one thing. This huge news that just came out from the NFL, from the NFL's major newsbreakers, and apparently the NFL sent a memo out to the NFL's teams as well. Then we're going to talk about how it affects the Kansas City Chiefs, and then we're going to talk about what Kansas City can do because of this news. So some consequences of this news coming on the back end of today's show, but I'm not going to bait you any longer on it. This is the major announcement. For the first time in NFL history, the NFL's cap space is set to cross the $300 million threshold. I know, it's enormous. If you look over the last few years, how quickly the cap space has grown, it's pretty unbelievable. It took from 2006 to 2022 to go from 100 to 200 million, and then just from 2022 to right now to go from 200 to 300 million. But why is that great news for Kansas City? Why is that such a gift for the Chiefs, in my opinion? Because, guys, it's no secret, we are cap-strapped to hell. We are the most cap-strapped team in the entire NFL. They have the lowest cap space in the league, not even particularly close. Prior to this, they were projected for negative $62 million in cap space by over the cap. Yeah, not good. Not good at all. But that was off of a projected cap of $295 million. So we've now added anywhere from $6 to $10 million because, like I said, it's going to be over $300 million, but the NFL hasn't quite finalized the number yet. It could be as high as $305 million, which would be the most optimistic scenario for the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, we want as much cap space as possible because we are currently so in the negative. But it could also be a little bit lower than that. It could come in at $301 million. So no matter how you dice that pie, it's going to be over the $300 million threshold. Like I have said before, this will be the first year in NFL history that it will cross $300 million, but we're not quite sure exactly where it'll fall. But no matter where, it'll create $6 to $10 million of new cap space for the Kansas City Chiefs. And that is enormously important. Every single penny counts when you're trying to save cap space, much less $6 to $10 million worth of pennies. That's a lot of frickin' pennies, guys. That's going from 62 to potentially 53 million. If you look at Spotrac's projections, they're projecting that it'll come in at 304.3 million, which is consistent with the new NFL projections. So we'll go with that number for the rest of today's video and say that now the Kansas City Chiefs are sitting on negative $53 million in cap. Now I want to get back to the other cap-saving moves that we talked about in our perfect offseason video. So if you watched that video a couple weeks ago, one of the more popular videos on the channel over the last couple weeks, shout out to you guys. Comment Real One if you watched that video, if you checked that one out. We massively appreciate you. But in that video, we detailed a number of moves that the Kansas City Chiefs could make to save cap space, to get down from $62 million to back in the green. And if you watched it, you know there's a lot of them, and we can create a metric ton of cap space. It's pretty simple. A couple things we can do. Number one, release Jawaan Taylor. We've talked about releasing Jawaan Taylor since pretty much the middle of the season. I've made no secret of the fact that that's absolutely something Kansas City needs to do this year. It's just too simple. You're going to save $33 million by doing, or no, excuse me, you're going to save $20 million by doing that, moving you to negative $33 million in cap. Next, you can release Drue Tranquil. This will save you another $7 million. It's not that Tranquil's a bad player, but I just don't necessarily think he's worth what we could save in cap by moving on from him, and I think he is replaceable in the draft this year. I think there's ways that we can get a new version of Drue Tranquil. Here's the big one. Here's the one that absolutely has to happen. You are going to save $29 million by restructuring Patrick Mahomes' contract. It'll take you from negative $26 million, or excuse me, no, you're going to save $44 million by restructuring Patrick Mahomes' contract. It's going to take you from negative $26 million to $17 million. Sorry, a lot of numbers, guys. So I got a little confused there, but you will save $44 million total by restructuring Patrick Mahomes' deal, moving you from negative 26 to positive $17 million. So we're back in the green here, and back in the green much quicker than we were when we did the perfect offseason video. Now you can restructure Chris Jones's deal. This will save you an additional $23 million, just a little over 22, but when you combine it in, it's going to take you over $40 million in cap. I don't even think you have to do what we talked about in the original video to get to this point where we are right now, which was restructuring Creed Humphrey and restructuring Trey Smith. But it's also perfectly possible that you could, and there is an argument to do so, because if you do it, it's going to take you over $60 million in the green. That's right, guys. The Kansas City Chiefs could enter the offseason armed with not only a top 10 draft pick, number 9 overall, the ability to add a premium player right there, but also a whopping $60 million in cap space to go attack free agency with. Yeah. I like the sound of that. I know you like the sound of that. We're going to talk about what the Kansas City Chiefs could do with that money to be as aggressive as humanly possible this offseason in just a moment here. But first, I got to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, and that is Prize Picks. Guys, the big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get in on the football action before next season. So close the season out right with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. With the new social feeds feature, you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Copy lineups you like and use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners like us and tailor-fade our picks with just one click. Guys, I use Prize Picks all the time. I'm definitely going to use it for the big game. Setting lineups just makes the games more enjoyable to watch, and I absolutely recommend that you do too. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Indeed, it is. And I think it would be right for the Kansas City Chiefs to use this new cap space more aggressively. We've talked about this before. Every year that you have Patrick Mahomes on your roster is a part of the Super Bowl window, and if you don't treat it as such, you are failing. I really feel that way. I think every Kansas City Chiefs fan should feel that way. That when you have the greatest quarterback in arguably NFL history, I think he's on track to be that you have to be as aggressive as humanly possible to, I don't even know what the right word is, to do justice to him in some way, to put the great team that he deserves to have around him. I really feel that way. So a couple things that you can do. Number one, retain Jaylen Watson. I think this is probably the least exciting of the three options that we're going to talk about. Keeping Jaylen Watson, while he was a solid player this year in Kansas City, number 35 is going to want a big deal at the end of the day. He played his way into that range. He played at that caliber. There's an argument for keeping him. Absolutely there is, because of the caliber of player that he is. We could keep that guy on the back end. It probably takes away a draft pick that you could use in a different direction in the first 3 rounds. But I also think there's an argument for getting a little younger in the secondary. And I think we're in the right track to doing it. at the end of the day. Christian Fulton showed some things that I liked at the end of the year last year after being very minimally used throughout the season. I think he could step up into a bigger role and replace Jaylen Watson. I think Noah Williams was fantastic throughout the year. You guys know I love Noah Williams. If you watch a lot of our videos, I talk about him all the time. I think he showed a ton of potential. Should have gotten more PT last year, but I think if you let Jaylen Watson go, there's an opportunity for Noel to get additional PT, plus whatever rookie you might go in and add. So retaining Jaylen Watson, to me, would absolutely not be the best use of this cap space, but I know it's going to be something that's on a lot of people's minds. It's coming up as their first option, like, hey, we have more cap space. Can we keep Jaylen Watson? Yeah, probably. You could definitely afford to do that with this additional cap space, but is that what you really want to do? Is that really the best move that the Kansas City Chiefs could make? I don't think so. I think a more aggressive play would be number 2. And these are kind of progressively ranked in terms of like how much I like them, with number 2 being the second best, and that's Trey Hendrickson. Go out and get Trey Hendrickson. It's going to depend on the deal that he wants at the end of the day. We don't really know. PFF, I know a lot of people have their issues with PFF in their grades. I think their contract projections and their stats are a little bit more broadly accurate. I'm not going to say they're like perfect at all. But they have him projected for a 1-year, $21 million contract. And it kind of makes sense given he was injury-plagued in 2025. He only played, I want to say, 6 games. Let me double-check here. Yeah, 7 games. He played 7 games. And he had 9 tackles, 23 pressures, and 4 sacks in those games. So he was productive in the games that he played in, but he didn't play a whole lot of snaps. So not what Trey Hendrickson was looking to get out of this year. Obviously, he wanted that big money extension from either the Bengals or the opportunity to go get it somewhere else in a trade. The Bengals were never interested in trading him, and the offer that they wanted never came. And then, obviously, he's no longer really set up to get the big money deal because he was injured this season. Can we take advantage of that situation and sign him to a 1-year prove-it deal for, in their minds, they said $21 million would be the contract with 17 of that guaranteed. I honestly think you might have to guarantee every penny of a $21 million contract if you were going to get Trey Hendrickson that cheap, but I'd be comfortable doing it. I'd be comfortable giving him 1 year, $21 to $25 million, guarantee every single penny of it, say, Trey, we just need you to revamp the pass rush, man. Go get after the quarterback. Because that was something that was a consistent issue for us. We know Trey Hendrickson can do that. Led the NFL in sacks in 2023. Led the NFL in sacks in 2024. He is a sack machine. A lot of people criticize him sometimes for being a stats over team guy, but I honestly think we need a guy who's willing to stuff the stat sheet or can stuff the stat sheet as far as pass rushing goes. I don't care if he's a little selfish about how he does it, because right now we don't have anybody that's really doing it as a pass rusher, period. So Trey Hendrickson, in my opinion, would be a very efficient use of that money that you've saved there. Maybe you have to let a couple more people walk, and we could talk about that if it does become more rumored that Trey Hendrickson is a serious option for Kansas City. But I want to float that out there to you. I want to get that going in your head that as the Chiefs create cap space, I do think that going after Trey Hendrickson is realistic. I know it's something that's come up, and it's probably been in your mind like, oh, that's kind of fantasy land that the Chiefs could add Trey Hendrickson. I don't think it is fantasy land with this added cap space. Now that the NFL continues to add year over year in terms of the cap, maybe it isn't as unrealistic as it seems. And lastly, sign Alec Pierce. I love the idea of this. This would be by far the most expensive contract, but it would also be the most aggressive move because it would allow you to do something that I think would be very important, and that's pair Patrick Mahomes with a true, proven, deep threat in this offense. And I think what's important about Alec Pierce is he's been wildly productive in Indianapolis. Well, not wildly, but he's been very productive in Indianapolis, especially when you factor the quality of quarterback play that he has dealt with over the last couple seasons. Gardner Minshew was his starter at a point. Anthony Richardson has been playing for serious stretches. Phillip Rivers in the year 2025 was his quarterback at one point this year. He did have a good stretch of Daniel Jones this season as well, but a lot of a revolving door of guys, to say the least, over the last couple years in Indianapolis that have been with Alec Pierce, and he has been at the very least solid with every single one of them. And none of them are even top 15 passers. Not a single one of the guys who revolved through Indianapolis with Alec Pierce, I don't think you could claim to be even a top 15 passer. Maybe you could say Daniel Jones played like a top 15 quarterback to start the season. I wouldn't deny you that. But outside of that stretch of Daniel Jones, who has he played with that's a top 15 quarterback, much less the best quarterback in the NFL? You give that guy to Patrick Mahomes. And remember, if you're not familiar with Pierce, his game is true deep threat. That's what he is. And I think that's something we've been trying to give Patrick for years, ever since Tyreek Hill left this offense. You try with a guy like Mecole Hardman. You try with a guy like Xavier Worthy. Excuse me, name slipped my mind there for a second. But yeah, you try with Worthy, and it hasn't been as successful as you've hoped over the last couple of years to really get him going. I feel like he's ultimately settling into a kind of disappointing level of gadget type usage at the end of the day. And I think we need a true, proven deep threat, someone that can consistently win over the top, develop that kind of rapport with Patrick Mahomes. We saw Tyquan Thornton do that in just a couple weeks this year. And he's also a pending free agent, so hey, you spend a little bit of extra cash on Alec Pierce, you get to let Tyquan Thornton walk. Maybe he can go be productive somewhere else. I wouldn't necessarily mind keeping him, but I don't think you need to keep three speedsters and Xavier Worthy, Alec Pierce, and Tyquan Thornton. But then you let Pierce and Worthy take over this role. And Worthy, if he cannot be productive alongside Alec Pierce, maybe you do start to think about moving on after that point. But I think Pierce could be Mahomes' guy. I think he could be that number one, number two option. Maybe if Rashee Rice really gets back on track, he could be the number one. But that could be the threat, or the speed threat, that opens up the Kansas City Chiefs offense. I really think Alec Pierce could play that role beautifully for the Kansas City Chiefs. But I want to hear from you guys. Which of the three options that we just discussed would be most attractive to you? Do you want to keep Jaylen Watson? Do you want to sign Trey Hendrickson? Or do you want to go sign Alec Pierce? Three options. Retain Jaylen Watson, sign Trey Hendrickson, sign Alec Pierce. Let me know in the comments which of the three of those is most attractive to you. And I will see you guys in the next episode of the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports. Thanks for tuning in, as always.